So welcome everyone to the fifth session of Peeking Outside the Bubble. This is a set of conversations where we speak to people we have trained with during our academic careers. And these are very smart and accomplished people who decided to step outside academia and have fulfilling careers. This is an important conversation to have, considering the fact that a small fraction of us, even at the postdoc level, will stay in academia. I had the thought during my PhD, like, what am I good for other than academics? And clearly, had I heard these discussions, I think I would have been in a better mental space at the time. So students and postdocs who are in this boat, welcome to the club. Please listen in. And with that, first of all, I'm going to thank NCBS and InSTEM for encouraging such discussions to be held and shared publicly. The NCBS Communications Office is the reason we are able to have this in a timely manner, recorded, edited as needed, and put up on YouTube. And all my colleagues who participate. So today we have with us Mayur, Vadhwani, Lily, and Deeksha. These are, again, like always, really awesome people. And so that I do not do injustice to their introduction, I will ask them to introduce themselves. So can I first ask Mayur to introduce himself?
Yeah, thank you, Dhananjay. And also thanks to the entire team for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and share my experiences that I've been through and what I've learned over the few years. Just to introduce myself, I am currently based in Berlin, where I'm working as a biopharma consultant. We have some of the biotech industries and pharma industries as our client, where we offer our services. And the services are essentially from preclinic until the clinical stage. And then we try to add additional modules. We serve them on a variety of things, which could be mergers and acquisitions, which could be portfolio management, which could be forecasting or asset specifications, etc. So it's a wide range of array that we focus on. And if you look at it, that has nothing to do with what I run during my PhD research.
Right. Thank you. Clearly, there's a wide variety of things that you've done. Mayur, just one small bit. Your audio seems to be fluctuating. Just want to let you know. Right. Okay. Thank you. Lily, could you please introduce yourself to the audience, to the NCBS campus? You are no stranger, but still.
Yeah, hello. So I'm Lily, and I've arrived here at NCBS in India. It was the first time I set foot in India, actually, when I arrived about 6.5 years ago. And so I helped set up and managing what we call the mouse genome engineering facility. So these are services to, and this is a national facility, so it was part of a national DBT program to create this type of facility to make new transgenic mouse model for the researchers here in India. And we've been also involved in providing, sperm and mouse cryo-archiving services so that people can, archive their precious stocks that they sometimes had a lot of issues importing from abroad. So it was a nice way to be able to archive these. And so actually this is something that was actually very helpful here during the pandemic because people were afraid to lose all their stocks. So we've actually been very proactive with that. Yeah, so all types of services related to mouse genome engineering and mouse stock archiving. But also I've been really involved, and this is something that I cherish a lot and I like in training. So in actually teaching, whether it's scientists, veterinarians, other facility staff around the country, or students in basic mouse genetics that may be required for their scientific work or their facility technical work, and with the mandate also to provide other platforms in India where these types of services are available, because it's a big country with a lot of science going on. And so it's nice to have, different areas in the country where these services are provided as well. So yeah, so all of this has been exciting and challenging, but yeah, that's it for now.
Thanks, Lily. Deeksha, could you tell us could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So first of all, Dhananjay, thank you so much for having me here. And nice to meet other panelists too. It's always great to see people doing different type of work. And this is a great opportunity to know about, what other type of things people are doing. So my name is Deeksha and I'm a trained chemist. I had my PhD postdoc like everything. And rather sitting on this side of the table, I sit on the other side of the table. And that's an interesting journey I can share later on. So currently, I am responsible to grow 2 business units in the country, and that's American Chemical Society. It's a not-for-profit organization, United States-based, and it's 150 years old chemistry, chemical science, biological science, physical engineering sciences related not-for-profit professional society. It has several businesses like publishing activity as well as providing information solution, and also membership as a huge footprint all over the world. So we have nearly 155,000 members across 170 countries. And in India, we started our presence formally in 2014. And in 2019, I got responsibility to set up a Delhi office and grow teams here, build ACS strategy, and how we should have our sustainable business here in the country, which is more relatable to people here and cater their needs. So basically, being an American organization, how you become more relevant for people over here and help them build the skills and help them publish better, or help supporting their careers and so on. So right now I'm busy hiring some good people and building teams and doing a lot of things which I never thought being a scientist I'll be doing. So that's altogether fun.
That's excellent. So could you briefly tell us in more detail what your role involves?
Sure. So as Associate Director India, I work on growing how ACS should be working for next 5 to 7 years down the line. Though we have, broader mission, vision, and goal, but when it comes to a specific or a strategy, we have to think about who our audience, what we want to do with them, how they should be using our products and services better. So that all require building very solid, engagement strategies. So for example, early career researchers, exactly who you are talking to. We are working in the career space with them, how we empower them in terms of more, writing better papers, or, writing resumes, or preparing for interview, or even, building relationship with industry. That's one part. Also, how we can help them to publish better paper, be a reviewer, how we educate them about scientific ethics, plagiarism, and several other aspects which goes into like writing and publishing piece. Also, how they can better communicate their science. So with these goals, we are working with several partners in the country, like Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. We have publishing workshop with them, and SCRB. We have another program with them, CRSI. So several local partners here, and we are working on those mutual objectives where they want to cater and help the community over here, and we also want to help community over there. So my role is broadly to devise those strategies, build those bridges, and start implementing all those things. So all my team basically does it, and I help them troubleshoot things. And I myself was a doer, and now I got this opportunity to help people do those things. So slightly more into supervisory role, but at the same time, if required, go to the ground, do it, and get job done. So that's pretty much shifting the gears.
That is, and in fact, now to everyone here, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the boots of students and postdocs who might be considering opportunities outside academia, but even before that, up to when you actually started your research career. So Deeksha, could you tell us what sort of scientific question you addressed in your research to start with?
So I was like a very, in a stereotypical conventional mindset, like everyone is. We finished masters, right? You are good at, you get admission at good place, you got like PhD. So until PhD, it was a very standard stereotypical journey, because you have masters, you do PhD, you get a job in academia. great enough. I never thought even I should be doing something else. It was going all normal. And when I finished my thesis, I actually realized all the postdoc options were somehow disappeared. And I was like, I don't know. What do I do now? So people suggested, hey, go to industry. I said, okay, let me try that. Since there was like nothing at my hand, so I opted one postdoc at GE, which was industrial postdoc. But I had that aspiration to go to US and then do one more postdoc. I landed there, finished one postdoc. I think that was the time when I had a lot of time with myself and asked those questions. Somehow I was not very happy. Somehow I was not really enjoying. Every day before going to the lab, I used to think, I have to go again today. Then that was really the time when I was self-honest with myself and I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Right. And then, everything started in reverse direction.
So your PhD was in chemistry?
It was polymer science, and my master's was in organic chemistry.
And what, I mean, do you remember what kind of things you were dealing with?
In PhD, I was working on fuel cell membranes, and we were looking for alternative solutions which were renewable and are going to provide higher energy efficiency. And that time we thought, okay, Nafion was a membrane there, which was very expensive, fluorinated, and they had environmental issue. So how you develop a membrane which is more environment friendly and cost effective plus higher performance? That was the question I had when I started my PhD. And when I finished it, I think we were successful to have a decent membrane. So we did not patent it, but really published good papers. And even one of the reviewer of my thesis asked, have you patented it already? I said, really? Is that something I can do? Because I had no idea, patenting during my PhD.
I mean, I think what you're doing fits the definition of rocket science. But anyway, thank you, Deeksha. Lily, when you started your research, what kinds of questions were you looking at in your research?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because between my PhD and where I am, I did some other things that were very different, but actually my PhD work is kind of very linked to what I do now in another side of angle of things. But so during my PhD, I was looking at, so I'm a developmental biologist by training. And I was looking at the cell fate decisions that were made in the early mouse embryo in terms of which muscle types were going to be generated and patterning of the muscle and all these things. So I was actually very passionate and I really chose that position for that subject in that lab. I was I had done a lot of internships. I was very young. I was very saying, I'm going to do research. This is what I want to do. I want to understand how this biology thing and patterning. I was very, very early on this, what kind of decision makes you having a hand at the place of your hand and not your head? How is all this actually put together in such a beautiful way? So I pursued that, and I did my PhD at the Pasteur Institute in Paris. I'm French by people who don't know, but yes, so I was there, and during for this to answer my scientific question, I was looking at a protein called NUB and how its impact in cell fate decisions, and at the time there were no mouse genome engineering or transgenic facilities. If you wanted to make these types of tools for your work, you had to do it yourself, right? So I got trained by, at the time, the experts that were at the Pasteur Institute, not at the time knowing what luck and kind of wonderful environment I was in. It was just like, I was there, so why not? And so I learned how to make transgenic mice, and I was doing this during my PhD. And and that's not at all imagining one single cent that 15 years later I would end up in India redoing transgenics for other people. So that came much later down after my postdoc. But I was enjoying it a lot at the time. Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks, Lily. So Mayur, when you started off in research, what kinds of questions had you addressed?
So my research background is essentially neuroscience. I started studying neuroscience back at DIFR when I joined there for my master's. at Veronica and Vidita's lab. Before that, I had a chance of working for 2 months during my bachelor's on generating essentially plantibodies. That's what we used to call them. So antibodies, so re-engineer the plants to generate antibodies, which I found quite fascinating. Started my journey at TIFR working on neuroscience. I think that's where I found my sweet spot and had stayed in neuroscience since then. Came to Germany at Max Planck in Göttingen, pursued my research interest again, looking at one of the E3 ubiquitin ligase. I'm sure it doesn't really matter here for the conversation, but just because it has been one of my favorites, I'll mention it. It's called FBX031. And then I was looking at how this molecule is involved in the formation of axons and dendrites in the neurons and how it affects the migration in the neurons. So trying to address very, very basic and fundamental questions. Moved on to do my postdoc here in Berlin at Charité, which is one of the medical university in Berlin. And there I was again looking into the cell signaling pathways, but slightly more focused towards the disease. So focusing on neurodevelopmental disorders, primarily autism and Rett syndrome. So that's a summary of the kind of research questions I was trying to address.
Right. So from neuroscience, developmental biology, material sciences, really hardcore questions, then we have reached very different positions. So we'll start with Mayur again. You described how you went all the way to postdoc. What connects you from there to your current position? I mean, what sort of circumstances and thoughts and considerations did you put in when you stepped outside academia?
So I should actually be a little bit frank about this. I had never considered being a professor since my PhD or maybe even my master's. A few of my colleagues back then already know it. It's just the interest in science that made me move and continue doing my PhD and postdoc, which lasted for long. And I'm actually happy to say I enjoyed the entire phase, the entire journey. Concerning my transition into my current role, which is consulting in biopharma industry, it did not happen overnight. I mean, it took me a long time. At the end of my PhD, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to pursue in terms of long-term goals in my career. So I essentially got a setback back then because I thought postdoc was my only option. I did not have a chance to talk to a lot of people. This is when I gave myself a few months, decided that I'll work on it. I'll take postdoc as a challenge. One, because science is something that interests me to figure out if I would still like to continue in research. And second, try to figure out and understand what are the other avenues I could possibly move into. And I'm glad I took my postdoc here in Berlin because it gave me an opportunity to talk to a lot of different people, a variety of people, network with amazing set of guys within Berlin and outside as well. So got a chance to interact with a few consultants and a few venture capitalists. What I was trying to do is essentially take off what I was not interested in. And that helped me filter out the things that I wouldn't see myself pursuing on long term. And I realized, so there were two projects that actually came along. One of them was working on a business plan for one of the startups based in New York. I got involved in that, really enjoyed working on that for about a period of 4 months. Then there is another project that I got involved while working with one of the academic entrepreneurship program here in Berlin. It's called Spark. Really enjoyed that and got involved in a different set of organizations, both at local, which is within Berlin at Charité, and also at global level, which is one of the organizations called STEM Peers. So essentially, my interest grew gradually through interaction and talking to different people. That's where I realized I am interested in the business side.
Awesome. So actually, we'll talk about STEM peers a little bit later in detail. So, and I think, you've resonated something that we've heard a couple of times, where people said that we enjoy science, but we don't want to be PIs. So that point has come up, and I think that's something for people to consider. Right. Thanks, Mayur. So, Lily, you were from Shagrin Tajbakhsh's lab, which is a pretty cool lab.
Wow,
and
wow.
so
You know how to say his name.
So you went from there to this current position, and like you said, you were involved in a few things in between. So could you tell us how this transition happened and what practical considerations you made while making this transition?
Sure. So like I was saying, I mean, my PhD was a very, hardcore choice. And at the time I was, young and enthusiastic, and I was seeing myself with a professorship, even though I had these big dreams, or having my own Lilly Institute of Research or something. And I'm kidding, but no, I was really in that direction and mindset. The PhD was long. It was long. It was tough, but I enjoyed it a lot, and I was doing really wonderful, really cool stuff in a really great lab. But at the end of my PhD, I was a little bit exhausted, and not really. Also had some family personal situations that I needed to find myself a little bit. So I actually took that opportunity to take a year off and travel around South America. So I did not jump directly from PhD to postdoc. And at the time, even doing that, my Sharagim and my PI was like, "What are you doing? This is a really bad career move. You should go," and things like that. So, but I went, and I really encourage people to do that if they can. It's a tough jump to make sometimes, but I do not know one single person who gets doing these things. There's a lot of learning about yourself and traveling anyway. But then I had to come back. This was not going to be my life, traveling in South America. So I came back, and I stayed with Sharagim again at Pasteur Institute for a couple of months. And then he said, "Well, you need to do something." And I said, yes, I'm going to do something. So I applied to postdocs. I was fine with doing that as well. I was still looking at something in developmental biology because this is what I love, but I wanted to change the organism on which I was going to work. I liked mice, but I also love genetics, and it was kind of difficult to do really cool genetics in mice at the time. So I ended in Richard Mann's lab at Columbia University doing developmental biology, patterning studies again, in Drosophila. And so that was my postdoc there. And so it's during this postdoc that I started questioning myself, like Mayur was saying, okay, and at the end of my postdoc, Richard, my boss, was kind of like, pushing me into applying to grants for, PI positions or IR1s or whatever it was. And I said, and this at that time, I said, well, I don't, I had never really thought about it, but I don't actually see myself doing that. And then say, okay, that's cool. Like Mayur said, you know what you don't want, but okay, from what do you do now? So I was very fortunate that Richard was really cool with that. The time I actually had the guts to go in his office and tell him, I don't want to, pursue as a PI. I don't know yet what I want to do. I need a little bit more time. And so he was really cool that he offered me a position as lab manager in his lab. So it was kind of an arrangement with him that, I would finish whatever postdoc work that I had in his lab. And he gave me more or less a couple of months to a year to figure out stuff, and I would have this lab manager position. So that was kind of a relief, but I need to be proactive and looking into what I was going to do. And so this is why I said, well, I'm going to just look at the job, because like you said, Dhananjay, you don't know what options you have because nobody actually told you anything. So I said, well, I'm going to just look at the job advertisement and see if there's something that speaks to me. You know, is there something? Because I had no idea. And so I just looked at the job advertisement and started applying to whatever job ad said, oh, well, this is cool. I could see myself doing that. And of course you get rejections and things like that, but it's just the fact to whatever interview you actually end up going, it's so gratifying because people come back and say, thank you, oh, this is great, you've done that. And they actually value some things, some traits of your career or of your personality or whatever achievements that you've done that you actually didn't realize that was actually valuable material in terms of job searching and finding. So that's what people don't realize, you know, when you're doing a PhD or a postdoc, you're not only being trained on how to do good pipetting and PCRs, you know, you acquire these skills of, you know, thought process, troubleshooting, designing an experiment. So these things, you know, you acquire. That's actually very valuable experiment that you can transfer. And so, yeah, so I said, okay, cool. So I started applying for searching for other jobs in these pharma companies or things like that were in New York at the time. And then out of the blue, a former colleague from the Pasteur Institute, Ram Kumar, who was having his lab here at INSTEM, we kept in touch, you know, once or twice a year, and he calls me and says, well, you know, we're looking for somebody to set up the transgenic facility here at INSTEM. He had no idea that was in kind of this fuzzy, blurry situation. So I said, wow, this is great. Yeah, I should just go and try and see what happens. And then one thing led to the other, and that this is where I am now. And I knew the reason that I knew that I didn't want to pursue in academia is that I was not, you know, like Mayur said, you know, at one point you wake up in the morning and say, okay, or I think it's Deeksha who said this, okay, one more day of work, you know, you lose, when you start losing the passion and you actually, you know, why are you waking up in the morning? That's what you should start asking yourself questions. Yeah, and so I knew, so I said, okay, what do I like? I like being with people, and that's also something that I realized that I was missing a lot when I was doing, you know, fundamental or basic research in the lab, is that the type of professional people that you interact with, well, they're, you know, it's the same type of people, not that it's bad, but, you know, I need to interact with more variety. I was, you know, and this is what I realized when I was doing also the lab manager work in Richard. You know, I was going to accounts, writing grants with him, taking care of, interacting with, you know, I was hiring his staff and technicians. And so I said, well, this is something that I actually like doing, you know, kind of managing these types of things. And actually I'm realizing that I'm pretty good at it. So I was, whoa, this is good. I build up on that. Yeah. And so I think this is something for the young GRFs and students there that you should look at, you know, and I see this even when I see people writing resumes and CVs, you know, it's very, some of these CVs are extremely very academic because you just write your diplomas and you said I've been in this lab or whatever. Well, that's all great, but that's not what many people are looking for when they're looking at recruiting. You know, it's really, okay, what did you learn? What's not on your diploma that you actually do on an everyday basis, and that's actually part of the valuable work that you're doing, whether it's, you know, you're helping, you're teaching, you're helping your colleagues setting up or an experiment, or you're reorganizing, even if it's reorganizing the stocks of your lab in a, you know, functional way. All these things you should be part of the conversation of in your cover letter or things like that, because this is traits of your character and how you see yourself in the workplace that are actually very important. And so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think all of you have said that you first identified what you did not want to do, and then you identified what you like to do, and found an avenue to put that to work. And clearly, talking to people is crucial. And that's a very important part of any sort of professional life. In academia, it's okay if you put on your headphones and you're in your own little space, but nowhere else. So I think these are very important points you've brought up. Deeksha, I'm actually very interested to know from you who's actually who's gone from research up until postdoc to setting up a office for a multinational organization in a different country. What sort of skills did you acquire in your PhD that you use today? And what skills did you have to learn anew?
I think the most important thing which we often miss, and I think Lily said that right, and I will start it like little reverse because I want to put it in context. PhD is like to learn to drive a car. Once you learn, you can drive any car. So basically, it's more like problem solving or creating something, right? Or figuring out how to do something. So you build a thought process, you build an attitude, you are courageous, you're solving problem. We do all that, but somehow we don't realize all that in very conscious mental state. And we always stick to that papers, research outcome and things like that. So when I moved into this career, and actually it's a very complex thing. And let me put it like in words again. This skill set we have to do, I think the biggest thing is to be operating outside your comfort zone. And things which are not predictable, things someone may not tell you how to do, so probably looking for prescription definitely will not work. So your own ability to be innovative, your ability to be creative, to create something meaningful, finding a solution. So this tendency of fixing something, I think is very important. Then you become a wanderer and searching solutions and getting things done. So this attitude of go-getter, getting things done, I think helps big time. And plus it comes a little bit with courage and your tendency to do something meaningful. If I'm like very precise here, because that satisfaction is the key and that continue to drive you. I won't say it's a skill, so it's a combination of like a couple of things. Obviously, you build all those skills, but that's also part of your personality or character or who you are as an individual. And those things actually keep driving. So skill precisely, problem solving, good articulation, getting things done, and be a little bit innovative for sure.
Right. So, I mean, again, like you said, it's a personality trait, but was people management something that you had to learn? And, like looking at accounts, like a balance sheet or something, were those things that you had to learn?
So there is a lot of things we learn on job, right? There is like never a situation you can be in this mental state. Now I have all these prerequisites, which I would be needing like on a job, and then you get into a job. So how I see it, even when I was applying for a job, or even now when I hire, I just look at attitude mainly. And if you are a good material or ready to work hard with this dedication, I think you learn all those skills. So there is never a situation like, you will be knowing everything beforehand. Now, when I hire fresh PhD, I literally want to hire fresh people because it's so easy to train them versus people coming with fixed mindset. And they have so unlearning become very difficult at one point. So people say you need to be a good learner, but I would say you also need to be a good unlearner. You need to unlearn as well, what you have learned for so many years.
Right. Thanks, Deeksha. Well, Lily, do you think that there were things that you learned out beyond your PhD skills that you picked up that might be worth paying attention to right now as students?
Yes, like I was saying, and Deeksha said also the same thing, you don't realize it when you're doing it, but, for example, when I was at my PhD, it was at the time, I was the first PhD student of that lab, right? So it was a small PhD and we were just for a small lab and we were just organizing things. So organizing the ordering system for the lab, organizing, whatever the stock managements and things like that, we all had to do that in a way because we were a small lab. And I ended up doing quite a bit of that, not because I was forced to, but because I actually realized that I liked it, organizing the things and have a systematic way. So at the time, of course, I didn't realize that this was a skill set. But now with the position that I have now, I realize that, this is what I do on an everyday basis now, is basically managing and things like that. So these are the things that I think it's worth taking the time. Communication, obviously, teaching. So like I said, I enjoy a lot teaching, organizing workshops and trainings and things like that. So it's not a pure academic teaching job, but it's, and I'm training people from academia, but also from the industry and veterinarians. So it can be students, it can be scientific or industry people as well. So having this kind of interaction with a diverse group of people and expressing your passion and sharing your expertise in it, that's something that I enjoy a lot. Obviously, being in the academic setting in this case helps a little bit, because you do have access to that platform a little bit easier, I guess, than if you were in the industry. But that's also something that I realized I like. You know, when the new students were coming in, I would enjoy, you know, showing them how to do a PCR or how to, whatever it is. But just pinpointing that this is, some people don't like it. You don't like teaching other people, that's fine. But that's, like we say, you know, look at what you like doing and what you don't like doing, and also be honest about what you're good at doing also, because you may like something but not necessarily being good at it, right? So you have to be careful about these things. So I think it's important to, you don't need to be the expert or the Nobel Prize of whatever you're doing. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to, you know, if you want to move and add value to that skill set, you need to be honest with yourself about, you know, what level do you have? Do I need to, you know, go a little bit deeper in that direction because I like it and I want to enhance the skill set? Or, you know, yeah, I like it, but I have to be honest with me, you know, it's just not something that I'm pretty good at. So that's also why communication and interacting with other people is valuable. Right. I wanted also to add about the unlearning part, that it's true. I usually enjoy hiring freshers a lot, and because they come with this very naive ideas, but they're all in, right? And so it's always valuable to unlearning. People who think they know better than you is sometimes a little bit tough, but that's part of the management role. And that's also what you learn also in whatever, you know, director, management, or leadership position that you have, is that you sometimes, it's true, I am learning still on everyday basis, you know, is you never reach a level when you think you have reached a level of, you know, okay, I don't have anything to learn anymore. And this is where the link of science and research is still there in a different level, but, you know, the curiosity, the desire to do things a little bit different or to enhance this or whatever, that's still there in a different way, but it's still there. And I was going to say something, I forgot. Yeah, be open to, like Deeksha was hinted to that as well. Be open to doors that are slightly open, but you're not sure, you know, should I go again? I don't know if I'm really good at it. You're young, you're GRF or students. If you don't push that door, nobody's going to push it for you, right? And somebody else is going to push it and take your spot. So it's the best moment, actually, when you're in a GRF or a post PhD position, to actually go and explore. What's going to happen? Nothing bad can come out of that. Only good things can go. So if you want to try out this job or this thing, then go and try it out and see. And this is where you're going to maybe discover that, you know, you actually enjoy it or go. I mean, I had no idea what I wanted to do after that. I just, you know, this opportunity came, and for me, it was actually, you know, I like traveling. So, but I had never been to India. So I landed here. I knew nothing about India. The only thing I knew about India was Ram Kumar, and that's, you know, that was it. But so I didn't know if I would fit in or whatever. But I said, you know what, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll try something else. It's fine. But only good things can. But you have to take the experience, you know, in that mindset that you go, you make the best out of it, and whatever good, you know, that's something that you take in. And the things that are not good, that of course, then you realize it's not good. But whatever good outcomes come. Yeah, go ahead.
So just adding here one point, I think, which Lily highlighted, and now when I'm reflecting, hearing her, courage is the most important quality, or, you know, the attitude one needs when you are thinking out of box. because that's where you will hear a lot of people will be saying, you know what, you're going to screw up. I heard it a lot because, you do your master's, PhD, postdoc. Now you are literally like, 10, 15, 12 year into a setup. So you are stereotyped in certain things. And if you don't do those things, then there is a taboo. Oh, you might not be good, or you might not have found that job. So you are looking like, those other type of jobs. That's like a very common perception. And second thing is that we ourselves are very apprehensive, whether I'll be able to do it or I'm just going to make some mistake. So I exactly had that thought, what will happen when I was switching from my postdoc to get a temporary contract position back to India? And everyone said, you know what, you're going to screw up. I was the first staff in the country when I joined that position, no other position available here. So I told myself, if nothing works, I can anyway teach anytime. So I'm not going to kill. I don't have any loans. I don't have like kids who are dying hungry or like whatever. So I can just do whatever I want. So let me just go get into this mode. And this is so important. If you don't do it, then there is a regret for the life.
It's actually a lot of freedom, just let go. I mean, if you're not, you just let go, and you have to have that mindset that, don't go into something new with these misconceptions or things like that. Just go, like you said, naive, and just take in whatever is there to take in. And that's the best way to it's sometimes hard for people. I mean, there's, people to have this very apprehension and what they're going to say, or am I good at it or whatever. Who cares? You have to go and figure it out, and if you don't go, you will not figure it out, right?
So an attitude of exploration is good, and when you say courage is important, I think practically that translates to looking up websites for opportunities outside your lab, and maybe trying it out if you are unhappy where you currently are, right? Right. And now we're actually running short on time. And then after this question is the very important question of what opportunities you're aware of that students and postdocs and PhD and JRFs maybe you may look at. So we'll start with this very important question. Mayur, are you happy where you are?
Yes.
Okay. And Lily and Deeksha? Yes. That I think. So I think this is important because too many people think that stepping outside academia is a step down and emotionally and professionally unsatisfying. To all the people I've spoken to so far, that has not been true. I'm sure there are unsatisfied people on both sides. So, and now the most I think important portion of our discussion. So Mayur, are you aware of any opportunities that students and postdocs can look at outside academia in, say, your field?
So essentially, I would describe my field more as a consulting roles, essentially. And things have changed in last few years. So in last 10 years, if you look at companies, the big firms essentially, like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, etc., they've started hiring a lot of PhDs. It's just because they possess some really unique skills, which sometimes you don't find in MBA. For example, understanding science. This is what we do in the lab all the time. When you're talking about biology, you are trying to understand some of the really complex methods that operate in nature. The question is, can you essentially try to put together certain complex data in a context that makes sense under time pressure? If you're able to do that, I think you're ready for a lot of different jobs. It's not only consulting that you would be then ready for.
Right.
Given your question regarding jobs in consulting, there are a lot of boutique consulting firms that focus on specific niche sectors. If you think that might be of interest, reach out to the people in those companies. LinkedIn is I think it's a great tool to reach out to different sets of people. If they don't reply, don't have a regret, or just don't think that because the person has not replied, I'll not reach out to more people. I think that should be a trigger to reach out to more number of people. Just because you haven't received a reply, you haven't received an answer to what you seek for.
Right. And very briefly, Mayur, STEM peers, the idea behind it, and the practice of it.
Yeah. So STEM Peers is an organization that was set up about 5 years ago. It's a nonprofit organization that's registered in US. And like you're doing for peeking outside the bubble, it's essentially the same set of questions every PhD, every master's goes through, right? What is it that I'm good enough for? Whom I can talk to? What are the opportunities that could be interesting for me? So these different questions trigger everyone to move from a relatively healthy phase to more towards a depression phase, and this is what we want to prevent. I think the idea of STEM peers is essentially to have a discussion, to have answers to your questions as soon as possible. And how we approach that is mainly via Facebook group. It's a closed group, so unless you are a member, you cannot read the comments or comment on anything or see any discussion that happens. What I like about the community, currently there are about 18,000 members, is people are willing to share experiences, share information, and share anything that they could offer without wanting anything in return. I think this is a great attitude. And this is one of the reasons that the organization is currently ongoing and still growing stronger.
Right. Thanks.
What comes along, just one last thing regarding that, what comes along is that if you are active in discussions on that group, you connect with a lot of different personalities. You connect with a significant number of people, not only in your region or city, but across the world in different companies, in different roles. So you already have a big network settled there.
Right. Thanks, Mayur. Lily, do you know of opportunities, for similar positions in India or around the world right now that people could look into?
Yeah. So the technique. So it's a technique-based job opportunity, right? So in my case, like again, I learned this technique in my PhD. I didn't know it would land me here. But in this case, this technique is very particular. It's very kind of unique, and not many people are professional, have this skill set. So there are, I receive a lot of job offers from many other, whether it's the industry or not only at my level, but at the technician level as well. So that's important to say. All the technicians, all the facility assistants that have gone through MGF have not found, they stay here for 2-3 years and then they're hacked away by the industry or other. And many of them are now abroad, actually, doing either their PhD or in pharma companies, working in genome engineering as either a PhD or staff. Some of them is still, because that skill set as a staff is extremely valuable to many facilities and in India now, there's actually a position, if you go on the NCBS and InSTEM website, we are hiring right now for anybody who's interested, but also worldwide. So I think this is a particular skill set, but doing your training, you're doing your GRF or PhD, if there's a particular, technique also, that's another way to approach eventually job offers, right? So if there's a technique that you have developed or that that was required for your research work that is kind of unique, that's also something that you can, and that you like doing, of course, and that you want to build up on it. So it can be part now doing not academia research, but maybe R&D on this technique with other private companies, or like me, just being a facility manager in academia or industry related to this technique. So that's another way of looking at it. Of course, there's management, there's things, but if there's actually a scientific technique that's relating to science or medical research that you've learned and that you've actually enjoy a lot, I think you can actually look at building up on that. And in my case, I know that the techniques that we do at NGF are are valued in many areas, and there's no
I'm
lack of jobs for these people at all.
Like contract research organizations probably also are really buying for people.
Startups, contract organization, or academic facilities. And I'm saying this is not only India, this is worldwide. I mean, like I say, 80% of the staff that has gone through MGF are now working abroad.
Right. Thanks, Lily. And so Lily is hiring. Deeksha, you're also hiring apparently. So can you tell us more?
Sure. So I will come directly to the skill set. I mentioned I prefer hiring fresh PhD, and one of the key requirements into the roles like development editor or any other role in publishing industry, in particular at ACS, are the one. The people who have broader understanding of the science, like, we are working into an area of PhD, but there are people who are interested in, knowing other areas. Because when we get manuscripts and paper, it's not just like that particular topic one had their PhD in. It's just like, a huge scope. And things keep changing. So people who are reading savvy, people who have this ability to grasp quickly what is there, like the big picture, and what's the key message. Those are very critical skills, but it's very good articulation skills, reading, writing, and obviously verbal, because a person has to interact in like editor-in-chief, associate editor, authors. So it's like a huge range of stakeholders you are communicating. Plus, like, be independent in driving the project, proactive, flexible. So those are like, pretty common soft skills everyone required. So fresh PhDs with broader understanding in science, ready to step outside their comfort zone, I think can look for this position. One disclaimer here, and that's very disappointing. Sorry, I'm just saying on this platform. For example, among 100 CVs, they are like from very good institutes. Half of these CVs have, even language mistakes, typographical mistakes, punctuational, and that disheartened me because we have put so much effort. The second thing, people don't read job description properly. They don't have exactly an idea of what they are applying for, and that sort of shocked me. If you are really applying for a position, I think that is the first thing first. I mean, how do you decide even to apply for a job? First you read it, then you relate with it, then you think what I have, then you think what I don't have, then you apply for a position, right? And even I get surprised. I mean, looking at a CV, nice CV, you give a call, and then you ask, hey, do you know what the job is? Let's talk about it. Then they're like, literally blank. I was like, really? I mean, you even did not read the job description. Now you are expecting me to talk like 30 minutes about it. So I'm really sorry, but often the time I had to disconnect just in 2 minutes because I called you to talk about the job and that you don't know. So probably we are having a wrong conversation. So with that in brief, I think there are not less jobs. It is more about doing the right preparation, understanding what I'm applying for, and having that self-awareness and self-honesty and assessment. Even if I have a 50% of that, apply for the job. But 20%, 10% doesn't work, and there are a lot of jobs. So please search wisely, read job description. There is no prescription to find a job. It's just you have to do a sincere job of reading job description and being honest in the interview process. Then there are plenty of jobs.
Yeah, and visit the websites and things like that. I mean,
exactly.
Same thing. I mean, the hiring process can be so frustrating sometimes. Like I say, we have 300 candidates who sign up for job description. Out of that, 90% of them have not even gone on your website. Or
even really they don't read job description. You ask what is the primary responsibility, they will talk totally something irrelevant. I was like, how could you do it? I mean, I literally asked myself, how could you do it? And then people are complaining they're not finding job. I was like, you would never find a job if you do that.
People were thinking that they were going to work in a zoo or applying to my facility. It's like, just because they saw animals somewhere, they were working in the zoo. No, that's not exactly it.
For me, people think they have to do copy editing. I said, for God's sake, it's not copy editing job. You have to literally assess manuscript. I have written it 100 times. Please read it. So, Dhananjay, I'm like really sorry to say that, but I'm totally in the hiring mode and must have read nearly 300-400 CVs in last 3 months. And out of that, I mean, I was like really disheartened. There are all right people for the job, and people are crying. There are like no jobs, and I'm saying where are the right people for this job?
No. I mean, these are very important things to point out. When you look, I'm being on this side. I think people sometimes get comfortable. They think that because I have a PhD and papers, I deserve a job, which is a very strange notion, and one should get rid of that. I think that's the, Mayur was saying something, and then we'll close the discussion because we're out of time.
Yeah, I was about to say I completely agree and second the thought that Lily and Deeksha mentioned. So essentially, I remember one of the instances when I was looking at one of the very specific jobs I was interested in. It was related to venture consulting. And as I kept on reading the job description, there were 8 points mentioned. My smile kept on getting broader and broader. So I think what Deeksha mentioned, can you relate yourself to the job? Understanding that becomes really essential. And if you can, if your smile broadens after you read the job description, maybe that job is the perfect job for you. You should try that. I think everyone should try that.
Right. So with that, we just have to draw to a close because we're out of time. I think you've all raised very important points about how you made the choice. You've identified what you're good at, you knew what you don't like, and then you had the courage to step outside and actually actively look for jobs that fit what you what you like and your skill set, and that these are good tips for all of us at this stage in our careers. So with that, Mayur, Lily, Deeksha, thank you so much for participating in this conversation. Your time was really valuable and I think very well spent here. Thanks. And I would like to again thank NCBS in STEM for allowing for this conversation to be had publicly with all students and postdocs involved, and the NCBS Communications Office for actually making it happen. And with that, I think we should draw this to a close. Thank you very much, everyone.